Captain Neil Howard stood on the bridge of the HSS Vigilant, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at the star-speckled void. The ship's cloaking field shimmered almost imperceptibly, a constant reminder of their hidden presence. Around them, scattered throughout the sector, the rest of the human fleet lay in wait, invisible sentinels ready for action. Howard's steel-gray eyes narrowed as he watched the designated coordinates, waiting for the Kavid ships to arrive. His jaw clenched, a telltale sign of the tension coiling within him. The upcoming prisoner exchange was a powder keg, and he knew it. "Status report," he barked, his gruff voice cutting through the low hum of the bridge. Lieutenant Commander Grant Freeman, his XO, straightened at his station. The soft glow of his cybernetic eye implants contrasted sharply with Howard's decidedly low-tech demeanor. "All systems nominal, sir. Cloaking field at 100% efficiency. The rest of the fleet is in position and awaiting your command." Howard nodded curtly, his limp barely noticeable as he paced the length of the bridge. Years of military service had taught him to mask the pain, to push through it. The old injury was a constant reminder of why he distrusted the so-called miracles of modern medicine. "No cybernetics for him, thank you very much." "And our guests?" he asked, a hint of disdain in his voice. "The Kavid prisoners are secured in the brig," Captain Freeman replied, his augmented fingers dancing across his holographic interface. "Security reports they've been unusually quiet." "Quiet," Howard mused, stroking his salt and pepper beard. "That's never a good sign with those lizard cats." Freeman chuckled, the sound slightly modulated by his vocal enhancer. "Maybe they're finally learning some manners, sir." Howard shot his XO a wry smile. Despite their differences in embracing technology, the two had formed an unlikely friendship over the years. "The day a Kavid learns manners, Grant, is the day I'll let you install one of those ridiculous neural links in my head." "I'll hold you to that," Sir Freeman quipped, tapping his temple where the faint outline of his own neural interface was visible. Howard turned back to the view screen, his mind racing through potential scenarios. The Kavid were unpredictable at best, treacherous at worst. This whole exchange could go sideways in a heartbeat, and Howard intended to be ready when it did. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the diplomatic vessel. Ambassador Reeves is requesting to speak with you." Howard sighed, already anticipating the conversation. "Put her through to my ready room. Freeman, you have the bridge." As he made his way to his private office, Howard couldn't help but think of his small aquaponics garden waiting for him in his quarters. Those beautiful, deadly flowers were a much-needed reminder that even the most dangerous things could bring a measure of peace. He'd tend to them later, after this mess was sorted out. For now, though, duty called. And Captain Neil Howard was nothing if not a man of duty, no matter how much it irritated him. The door to his ready room hissed shut behind him as he prepared to face whatever new complications the ambassador was about to throw his way. One thing was certain: this prisoner swap was about to get a whole lot more interesting. Captain Howard limped into his quarters, the door sliding shut behind him with a soft hiss. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly as he breathed in the humid air, thick with the scent of soil and exotic blooms. His small aquaponics garden, tucked into a corner of the room, was a riot of color and danger just the way he liked it. He approached a particularly vibrant specimen, its petals a deep purple with veins of electric blue. Carefully, he pruned a wilting leaf, his calloused fingers surprisingly gentle. "You're a beauty," he murmured, "and twice as deadly as you look." As he tended to his poisonous Eden, Howard's mind drifted to the upcoming mission. The garden was more than just a hobby, it was a reminder of the duality of nature, of beauty and peril intertwined. Much like the delicate dance of diplomacy they were about to engage in with the Kavid. A twinge in his leg brought him back to the present, a ghost of pain from an old wound. Howard grimaced, rubbing his thigh absently. The injury was a souvenir from a skirmish with Kavid raiders years ago, before humanity truly understood the threat they posed. He could still remember the searing pain of the alien weapon, the acrid smell of burnt flesh. The doctors had pushed for cybernetic replacements, promising enhanced strength and agility, but Howard had refused. He'd seen too many good soldiers become overly reliant on their augmentations, forgetting the instincts that kept them alive in the heat of battle. "Captain to the bridge," Freeman's voice crackled over the intercom, interrupting Howard's reverie. "Kaviyid ships detected on long-range sensors." "Acknowledged," Howard replied, casting one last look at his lethal garden. "On my way." As he made his way back to the bridge, Howard's thoughts turned to the mission at hand. A prisoner exchange, a few hundred human colonists for a handful of Kaviyid special forces. It seemed like a fair trade on the surface, but Howard knew better. The Kaviyid never played fair. That's why the hidden fleet was here, cloaked and ready. The brass called it a precautionary measure. Howard called it common sense. He stepped onto the bridge, nodding to Freeman. His Exo's cybernetic implants glowed softly in the dim light, a stark reminder of their differing views on technology. Yet despite their disagreements, Howard trusted Freeman with his life. They'd been through too much together not to. "Status report," Howard barked, settling into his command chair. Freeman's augmented fingers danced across his holographic display. "Kaviyid ships holding position at the designated coordinates, sir. No signs of additional vessels in the area. That we can detect, at least." Howard grunted. "And our prisoners?" "Secured and ready for transfer," Freeman replied. "Though they're getting antsy." One of them asked if we were afraid to face them in open combat. A humorless chuckle escaped Howard's lips. If only they knew, eh? As the Vigilant moved into position, still cloaked and undetectable, Howard felt the familiar mix of anticipation and dread settle in his gut. Years of experience told him this exchange wouldn't go smoothly. The Kaviyid were too proud, too convinced of their superiority. But that was fine by him. Let them underestimate humanity. Let them laugh and mock. Because when the time came and Howard was certain it would, he and his hidden fleet would be ready to wipe those smug grins off their scaly, feline faces. "All right, people," he announced to the bridge crew, his voice hard as steel. "Let's get this show on the road, and stay alert. I've got a feeling things are about to get interesting." The Kaviyid ships loomed large on the Vigilant's view screen, their sleek, predatory designs a stark contrast to the utilitarian bulk of human vessels. Captain Howard studied them with a critical eye, noting the placement of weapon ports and the faint shimmer of energy shields. "Quite the welcoming committee," he muttered, counting at least a dozen warships. Freeman, analysis. His Exo's cybernetic eyes whirred softly as he processed the data streaming through his neural interface. "I'm detecting significant energy readings, sir. Their weapons are powered but not armed. Yet." Howard nodded grimly. Typical Kaviyid posturing. "All show, no substance," he paused, then added, "usually." As if on cue, a transmission crackled through the bridge speakers. "Attention human vessel," a voice purred, managing to sound both bored and contemptuous. "This is Commander Sharvik of the Kaviyid Consortium. We are prepared to proceed with the exchange." Howard exchanged a glance with Freeman before responding. "Understood, Commander. We're sending coordinates for the transfer now." As the communication officer transmitted the data, Howard studied the alien ships more closely. The Kaviyid were a curious species, an unlikely blend of feline grace and reptilian ruthlessness. Their ships reflected this duality: sleek lines, hiding vicious weaponry, much like retractable claws. Sir Freeman interjected, his augmented hand gesturing towards a readout. "I'm picking up some unusual energy fluctuations from the Kaviyid fleet. It could be nothing, but..." "But with these lizard cats, it's never nothing." Howard finished. He keyed the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the captain. Stand by for potential hostile action. This is not a drill." As the crew scrambled to battle stations, Howard couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. This was what he'd been waiting for, what he'd known was coming. The Kaviyid were many things, but predictable wasn't one of them. "Captain," the comms officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the diplomatic shuttle. They're beginning their approach to the transfer point." Howard nodded, his eyes never leaving the Kaviyid ships. "Patch it through." Ambassador Reeves' voice filled the bridge, calm and professional. "Captain Howard, we're proceeding as planned. The Kaviyid prisoners are secured and ready for transfer. Any last-minute instructions?" Just one, Ambassador Howard replied, his voice low and intense. At the first sign of trouble, you get our people and get out. Don't wait for confirmation. Don't try to salvage the situation. Just go. We'll handle the rest. There was a brief pause before Reeves responded. Understood, Captain. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. As the transmission ended, Freeman leaned in close to Howard. Sir, do you really think they'll try something? With so much at stake? Howard's lips curved in a humorless smile. Grant, if there's one thing I've learned about the Caveid, it's that they always think they're the smartest ones in the room. They can't help but try to get one over on us. He gestured towards the view screen, where the small diplomatic shuttle was now visible, approaching the designated transfer point. Watch closely. The Caveid are about to show their true colors. As if on cue, the energy readings from the alien fleet spiked sharply. Freeman's cybernetic eyes widened in alarm. Sir, they're powering weapons. Howard's hand tightened on the arm of his chair. And so it begins, he murmured, a predatory gleam in his eyes. All right, you scaly bastards. Let's see how you like a taste of your own medicine. With a series of crisp commands, Howard set the hidden fleet into motion, ready to spring the trap on their unsuspecting foes. The Caveid thought they were dealing with helpless prey. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The diplomatic shuttle hung suspended between the two fleets, a fragile bridge in a widening chasm of hostility. Captain Howard watched, his jaw clenched, as Ambassador Reeves' voice crackled over the comms once more. Greetings, Commander Sharvik, Reeves began, her tone measured and diplomatic. We're prepared to begin the exchange. Please confirm your readiness. There was a moment of tense silence before the Caveid commander responded, his voice dripping with barely concealed disdain. We are ready, human. Though I must say, your eagerness to trade valuable warriors for mere colonists is quite amusing. Howard's eyes narrowed at the thinly veiled insult. He glanced at Freeman, who shook his head slightly, cybernetic implants pulsing with increased data flow. Commander Reeves continued, unfazed, I assure you, we value all lives equally. Now, shall we proceed? A low, rumbling chuckle echoed through the transmission. Oh yes, let's proceed. It's always entertaining to watch humans fumble through these delicate matters. As the exchange began, Howard kept his attention split between the diplomatic feed and the Caveid fleet's movements. He could hear the snide comments, the barely suppressed laughter, as the alien commander continued to mock human efforts at diplomacy. Look at them, Sharvik's voice purred, clearly meant for his crew but audible on the open channel. So earnest, so naive. It's almost endearing, isn't it? Like watching cubs play at being warriors. Howard's knuckles whitened as he gripped his chair, but he remained silent. Let them laugh. Let them think they had the upper hand. The exchange progressed, human colonists transferring to the shuttle as Caveid prisoners were released. But with each passing moment, the alien commander's taunts grew bolder, more biting. I must say, Ambassador Sharvik drawled, your species' inability to protect its own is truly remarkable. Those colonies you lost, hardly a challenge. It's a wonder you've survived this long in the galaxy. Reeves' reply was cool and professional, but Howard could hear the strain in her voice. Commander, I remind you that this is a peaceful exchange. Your comments are neither necessary nor appreciated. Another laugh, sharp and mocking. Peace. Oh, my dear human. Peace is for those too weak to take what they want. But please continue with your quaint ceremony. As the last of the prisoners were exchanged, Howard felt the tension on the bridge ratchet up another notch. Freeman leaned in close, his voice low. Sir, energy readings from the Caveid fleet are spiking again. I think they're about to. He never finished the sentence. In a blinding flash, the diplomatic shuttle exploded, torn apart by a precision strike from the lead Caveid ship. No, Howard roared, surging to his feet. All ships, decloak now. Weapons free. As the hidden human fleet shimmered into view, surrounding the surprised Caveid ships, Howard's voice cut through the chaos, cold and deadly. This is Captain Neil Howard of the HSS Vigilant. You wanted a fight, you lizard-faced bastards? Well, you've got one. The bridge erupted into action as the battle began in earnest. But even as he barked orders and coordinated the attack, Howard couldn't shake the image of the destroyed shuttle or the sound of the Kavid's mocking laughter. They weren't laughing now, and by God, he'd make sure they never would again. The void of space erupted into chaos as the hidden human fleet materialized around the Kavid ships. Captain Howard stood at the center of the storm, his voice steady as he issued rapid-fire commands. Target their lead ship. I want that bastard Sharvik's vessel crippled, not destroyed. He's going to answer for what he's done. Freeman's augmented fingers flew across his console, coordinating the attack. Aye, sir. Focusing fire on the Kavid flagship. The Vigilant surged forward, her weapons blazing. Around them, the rest of the human fleet engaged, catching the Kavid in a deadly crossfire. Beams of energy crisscrossed the battlefield, punctuated by the staccato flashes of missile detonations. Sir, the tactical officer called out, Kavid ships are attempting to regroup. They're trying to form a defensive perimeter. Howard nodded grimly. Not going to happen. Order Beta and Gamma squadrons to flank them. Keep them scattered. As the battle raged, Howard couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. The Kavid's initial shock at the fleet's appearance had quickly given way to panic. Their formation was in shambles, their coordinated defense falling apart under the relentless human assault. Captain Freeman interrupted, his cybernetic eyes whirring as they processed incoming data. I'm detecting multiple escape pods launching from the diplomatic shuttle's wreckage. Life signs confirmed. A wave of relief washed over Howard, quickly replaced by renewed determination. Good. Dispatch rescue teams immediately, and get me a secure channel to Sharvik's ship. Moments later, the Kavid commander's face appeared on the view screen. Gone was the smug superiority, replaced by a mixture of rage and disbelief. You dare, Sharvik hissed, his feline eyes narrowed to slits. This is an act of war. Howard leaned forward, his voice cold as space itself. No, you scaly son of a bitch. This is justice. You attacked a diplomatic vessel during a peaceful exchange. You murdered innocent people. They were weak, Sharvik spat. The weak do not deserve. Shut your damn mouth, Howard cut him off. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to order your fleet to stand down. You're going to surrender yourself and your ship. And then you're going to pray that I'm feeling merciful. The Kavid commander's mouth twisted into a snarl. Never. We will never bow to. His words were cut short as the Vigilant's weapons found their mark. The Kavid flagship shuddered under the impact, its shields flickering and dying. That was your engines, Howard stated flatly. Next will be life support. Make your choice. For a long moment, Sharvik glared at Howard, hatred burning in his eyes. Then, slowly, the fight seemed to drain out of him. Very well, he growled. We surrender. As the order went out across the Kavid fleet, Howard turned to Freeman. Status report. His Exo's augmented gaze swept over the tactical displays. Kavid fleet is standing down, sir. We've suffered minimal losses. Rescue operations for the diplomatic shuttle survivors are underway. Howard nodded, allowing himself a small smile. Good work, everyone. But don't let your guard down. These lizard cats are crafty. As the adrenaline of battle began to ebb, Howard felt the familiar ache in his leg flare up. He ignored it, focusing instead on the task at hand. The battle might be over, but the war? That was just beginning. And this time, the Kavid would learn exactly what humanity was capable of when pushed too far. The Vigilant's hangar bay was a hive of activity as rescue shuttles returned with the survivors from the diplomatic vessel. Captain Howard stood at the entrance, his face a mask of controlled fury, as he watched the injured being rushed to medbay. Status report, he barked as Freeman approached, the Exo's cybernetic implants glowing softly in the dim light. Freeman's augmented eyes flickered as he processed the incoming data. 17 survivors recovered, sir, including Ambassador Reeves. She's injured but stable. Howard nodded grimly. And the Kavid? Their fleet is neutralized. We've disabled their primary systems and have boarding parties ready. Good, Howard growled. I want Sharvik and his command staff in our brig within the hour. And make sure our boarding teams are on high alert. I wouldn't put it past these bastards to have some nasty surprises waiting. As Freeman moved to carry out his orders, Howard's attention was drawn to a commotion near one of the newly arrived shuttles. A figure was pushing past the medics, limping but determined. It was Ambassador Reeves. "Captain Howard," she called out, her voice hoarse but strong. "We need to talk." Howard strode over, taking in her disheveled appearance and the angry burn on her left arm. "Ambassador, you should be in medbay." Reeves shook her head, her eyes blazing with a mixture of pain and determination. "No time. The Kaviyid. They weren't just posturing. This was a planned ambush." "What do you mean?" Howard asked, his brow furrowing. "Before they attacked, I overheard them," Reeves explained, wincing as she shifted her weight. "They mentioned something about a Phase 2, whatever this is. It's bigger than just us." Howard's mind raced, considering the implications. If this was part of a larger Kaviyid operation. Sir Freeman's urgent voice cut through his thoughts. "We're detecting massive energy signatures from the disabled Kaviyid ships. They're powering up." "Impossible," Howard muttered, but he was already moving, half supporting Reeves as they hurried towards the bridge. "All hands, battle stations. This isn't over yet, people." As they reached the bridge, the view screen showed the Kaviyid fleet coming to life, shields flickering back online, weapon systems recharging. "How the hell?" Howard started, but Freeman cut him off. "Sir, it looks like some kind of automated restart system. Our disabling strikes didn't take it into account." Howard's eyes narrowed as he watched the Kaviyid ships reform their battle line. They'd underestimated the Lizard Cat's technology, and now they were paying the price. "Status of our boarding parties," he demanded. "Most have already docked with the Kaviyid vessels," Freeman reported, his cybernetic fingers flying over the controls. "They're engaged in heavy fighting. Sharvik and his command staff are putting up significant resistance." Howard's jaw clenched. Their advantage was slipping away, and their own people were now trapped on potentially hostile ships. "Options?" he asked, looking around the bridge. Reeves stepped forward, her face pale but determined. "Captain, if I may, we need to end this quickly. The longer this drags on, the more likely it is that Kaviyid reinforcements will arrive." Howard nodded, a plan already forming in his mind. It was risky, potentially suicidal, but they were out of time and options. "All right, listen up," he announced, his voice cutting through the tension on the bridge. "We're going to punch straight through their line. Target their flagship. If we can take out Sharvik, we might be able to force a surrender." He turned to Freeman, his eyes hard. "Plot us a course, right down their throat. All power to forward shields and main guns. We're going to give these lizard cats a lesson they won't forget." As the Vigilance engines roared to life, Howard gripped the arms of his command chair. The battle was far from over, and the next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but potentially the course of the entire war with the Kaviyid. "All ahead full," he ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Let's finish this." The Vigilance surged forward, her engines straining as she bore down on the Kaviyid fleet. Captain Howard stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching enemy flagship. "Status of our boarding teams," he barked, never taking his gaze from the view screen. Freeman's cybernetic eyes whirred as he processed the incoming data. "Still engaged, sir. Heavy resistance on all decks. They've managed to secure several key areas, but Sharvik's location remains unknown." Howard nodded grimly. "Keep pushing. We need that bastard alive if possible." The ship shuddered as enemy fire impacted their shields. Alarms blared across the bridge, but Howard remained steady, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Evasive maneuvers. Pattern Delta 6. I want all auxiliary power to the forward shields. We're going to ram that son of a bitch if we have to." As the Vigilant weaved through the barrage of Kaviyid fire, Howard could feel the familiar ache in his leg intensifying. He ignored it, focusing instead on the battle at hand. There would be time for pain later if they survived. "Sir," the tactical officer called out. "I'm detecting fluctuations in the Kaviyid flagship shield grid." Looks like our boarding party might have reached a critical system. A predatory grin spread across Howard's face. There's our opening. All guns, concentrate fire on that weakness. Let's give our boys inside a fighting chance. The Vigilant's main cannons roared to life, a relentless barrage of energy beams and missiles hammering at the Kaviyid ship's compromised defenses. For a moment it seemed as if the alien vessel would hold. Then, with a brilliant flash, its shields collapsed. "Direct hit," Freeman shouted, his augmented fingers dancing across the tactical display. "Their primary weapon systems are offline. We've opened a breach in their hull." Howard leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "Send the second wave. I want every available Marine on that ship. Find Sharvik and end this." As the orders went out, the bridge of the Vigilant erupted into a flurry of activity. Status reports flooded in from all decks, updates on the boarding action mixing with damage assessments and tactical readouts. Amidst the chaos, Ambassador Reeves approached Howard, her face pale but determined. "Captain, if we manage to capture Sharvik, we need to be prepared for the diplomatic fallout. This could escalate the conflict beyond." Her words were cut short as the ship rocked violently, nearly throwing them both off their feet. Howard steadied himself against his chair, his eyes snapping to the tactical display. "Report," he bellowed. Freeman's voice was tense as he responded. "Kaviyid reinforcements, sir. They just dropped out of FTL behind us. 7 capital ships." Howard's mind raced. They were now caught between the disabled Kaviyid flagship and a fresh enemy fleet. The Vigilant was tough, but even she couldn't withstand an assault from both sides. For a brief moment, doubt crept into Howard's mind. Had he pushed too far? Led his crew into a trap they couldn't escape? Then his gaze fell on the small garden visible through the door of his ready room. Those beautiful, deadly flowers, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, life found a way to survive, to thrive. His resolve hardened. They hadn't come this far to fail now. "All hands," this is the Captain. Howard's voice rang out across the ship. "We're not done yet. Not by a long shot. Prepare for close quarters combat. We're going to show these lizard cats what happens when you back humans into a corner." As the crew scrambled to their stations, Howard turned to Freeman, a glint of determination in his eyes. "Grant, I need every ounce of power your cybernetics can squeeze out of this ship. We're about to pull off the impossible." Freeman nodded, a fierce grin spreading across his face as his implants began to glow brighter. "Aye, sir. Let's give him hell." The Vigilant shuddered under the combined assault of the Kaviyid reinforcements and the remnants of the original fleet. Captain Howard stood at the center of the maelstrom, barking orders as his ship danced between volleys of enemy fire. Evasive pattern Omega. Rotate shield harmonics. He turned to Freeman, whose cybernetic implants were glowing at an intensity Howard had never seen before. "Status on our boarding parties." Freeman's augmented eyes flickered rapidly. "They've penetrated deep into the Kaviyid flagship, sir. Heavy resistance, but they're making progress. Still no sign of Sharvik." Suddenly, the ship rocked violently. Alarms blared as acrid smoke filled the bridge. "Direct hit on Deck 4, the damage control officer shouted. "Hull breach. Emergency force fields are holding, but barely." Howard gritted his teeth. They were being overwhelmed and he knew it. But surrender wasn't an option, not after what the Kaviyid had done. Sir Freeman called out, his voice tight with urgency. "I'm detecting a massive energy buildup in the Kaviyid flagship. It looks like. Sir, I think they're preparing to self-destruct." Howard's blood ran cold. If that ship blew with their boarding parties still on it. "Get me a direct line to our team leaders," now he ordered. As the comm officer worked to establish the link, Ambassador Reeves approached Howard, her face grim. "Captain, if Sharvik is willing to sacrifice his own ship and crew, we need to consider the possibility that this is part of a larger strategy. The Kaviyid might be." Her words were cut off as a new voice crackled over the comm system. "This is Lieutenant Carl Finn, sir. We've located Sharvik, but we're pinned down. He's activated some kind of deadman switch. If we take him out, the whole ship goes." Howard's mind raced. They were out of time and options. He looked at Freeman, saw the same realization in his XO's cybernetic eyes. Lieutenant Howard said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Listen carefully. I need you to." Before he could finish, a blinding light flooded the view screen. For a heart-stopping moment, Howard thought the Kavid flagship had detonated. But as the glare faded, he saw something that made his jaw drop. A massive human fleet had just dropped out of FTL, dwarfing both the Vigilant and the Kavid forces. At its center was a ship unlike anything Howard had ever seen, sleek, powerful and bristling with weaponry that made the Vigilant's armaments look like pea shooters. "This is Admiral Carter Whitney of the U.S. Retribution," a stern voice announced over all channels. "Kavid forces, power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning." As the new human fleet moved into attack position, the Kavid ship seemed to freeze, caught between the hammer of the Retribution and the anvil of the Vigilant. Howard couldn't help the fierce grin that spread across his face. He turned to his crew, seeing the same mix of relief and determination in their eyes. "Well, folks," he said, his voice carrying a note of grim satisfaction. "Looks like the cavalry's arrived. Let's make sure we give them a warm welcome." With renewed vigor, the Vigilant surged forward, joining the Retribution in a pincer movement that caught the Kavid fleet in a deadly crossfire. As energy beams lanced out from the human ships, Howard allowed himself a moment of hope. The combined might of the Vigilant and the Retribution's fleet tipped the scales decisively. Caught in the crossfire, the Kavid ships began to falter, their formations breaking under the relentless human assault. Captain Howard stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the enemy flagship where his boarding team was still engaged. "Status on Lieutenant Finn's team," he barked. Freeman's augmented eyes whirred. "They've cornered Char-Vik in the ship's core, sir. But that deadman switch is still active." Howard nodded grimly. "Patch me through to Finn." The lieutenant's voice crackled over the comm, breathless and strained. "Captain, we've got Char-Vik pinned, but if we take him out—" "Listen carefully," Lieutenant Howard cut in. "I need you to disable that switch without neutralizing Char-Vik. We need him alive." There was a moment of tense silence before Finn responded. "Understood, sir. We'll do our best." As the battle raged on, Howard coordinated with Admiral Whitney, their ships moving in perfect synchronization to systematically dismantle the Kavid fleet. With each passing moment, the alien ship's resistance weakened. Suddenly, Freeman's voice cut through the chaos. "Sir, energy spike from the Kavid flagship. It's powering down." Howard held his breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then Finn's triumphant voice filled the bridge. "Captain, we've done it. Switch is disabled and Char-Vik is in custody." A cheer went up across the Vigilance bridge. Howard allowed himself a small smile before turning to Ambassador Reeves. "Looks like you'll get your diplomatic solution after all, Ambassador." Reeves nodded, her expression a mix of relief and determination. "This is just the beginning, Captain. There's a lot of work ahead to ensure this doesn't happen again." As the last Kavid ship surrendered, Howard looked out at the starfield, his thoughts on the future. They'd won this battle, but the war, both military and diplomatic, was far from over. Sir Freeman interrupted his thoughts. "Admiral Whitney is hailing us." Howard straightened, squaring his shoulders. On screen, Admiral Whitney's face appeared, stern but with a glint of approval in his eyes. "Well done, Captain Howard. Your actions here today have saved countless lives and given us a significant advantage in our dealings with the Kavid." "Thank you," Admiral Howard replied. "But we couldn't have done it without your timely arrival." Whitney nodded. "Sometimes, Captain, the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know you have. Now, let's clean up this mess and get your wounded to medical. We have a lot to discuss." As the transmission ended, Howard turned to his crew. Despite the aches in his body and the weariness in his bones, he felt a surge of pride. "You heard the Admiral. Let's finish this." The Vigilant moved into formation with the Retribution's fleet, beginning the process of securing Kavid prisoners and salvaging what they could. As Howard watched, he couldn't help but think of his garden waiting in his quarters. Life, beautiful and deadly, finding a way to thrive even in the harshest conditions. Just like humanity. Not laughing anymore. Are they? He murmured to himself, a grim smile playing on his lips as the last Kaviyad ship was brought under control. The battle was over. But for Captain Neil Howard and his crew, this was just the beginning of a new chapter in humanity's journey among the stars. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this. And please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.